What a lunatic. He made up something that's false. And now he's like, and I don't know why they'd be saying that. Well, they aren't. I'm going to obliterate Ben Shapiro, decimate Ben Shapiro. There's this little guy, this strange child who wears a military jacket, apparently, because nothing says I'm tough like being a little right-wing troll in a military jacket. Ben Shapiro, Zionist Jew, me, anti-Zionist Jew. I will say he's better at this propaganda than some people. He's actually, in terms of his bag of tricks of the garbage he's spewing, it's a little better than some of the others.
Contrary to public opinion, and I mean like public opinion in the media, because public opinion is very pro-Israel.
Half sentence in. Public opinion is very pro-Israel. False, depending on what you're talking about. First of all, false, but even where it's not false, I have a caveat for that as well. But so it depends on what public opinion he's talking about. If he's talking about the world, global public opinion, not pro-Israel. In fact, Israel's popularity around the world has tanked since they started perpetrating this genocide. This is from just a couple of weeks ago. Time magazine, support for Israel around the world has dropped significantly. Net favorability has dropped globally by an average of 18% between September and December, decreasing in 42 out of 43 countries polled. So when he says public opinion is pro-Israel, he's lying if we're talking globally. Net favorability in Japan went from negative 39 to negative 62. In UK, it went from negative 17 to negative 30 because they're committing genocide. Like you can't. But then here's in the US, it depends on which groups you're talking about. Half of US adults say Israel has gone too far. And the poll from a couple of months ago was that 63% of Americans want a ceasefire. So there's still a net favorability of Israel in the US. But that is in the midst of just tsunamis of pro-Israel propaganda. So even in the midst of tsunamis of pro-Israel propaganda, still you have half of U.S. adults saying Israel's gone too far. You have 63% of Americans saying they want a ceasefire. You have major cities like Chicago saying they're voting for a ceasefire. You have major unions like the UAW saying they want a ceasefire. So when he says public opinion is all pro-Israel, that's just a lie unless you're talking about certain very specific groups. But he doesn't want you to think about those things, so he just spouts his lie and moves on. Now, I'm only a half sentence through his lies, and you can see that why they are so pernicious, why they are so successful, is because it is too much to try and parse all. If you're new to this information, it's too much to try and parse every half sentence for the amount of lying going on. Back to his second half of his sentence. Also, why is he lit like he's sneaking into someone's apartment to murder them?
Contrary to public opinion, and I mean like public opinion in the media, because public opinion is very pro-Israel, the media seem to believe that the best move for Joe Biden on Israel, politically speaking, would be to side with Hamas.
We are 9 seconds in. Second half of the sentence is a propaganda trick. Well, and a lie. It's actually a lie and a propaganda trick. He says the media believe that Biden should side with Hamas. First of all, God, again, it's too much to parse all this garbage. So first of all, he said Hamas instead of Palestine. Secondly, he said side with instead of call for a ceasefire. By saying Hamas, the propaganda has been successful in making everybody hate everything about Hamas. Now, not every Hamas person is a Hamas fighter. Hamas is the government in Gaza. So therefore, there are healthcare workers that are Hamas. There are bookkeepers that are Hamas. That's the government. But so instead of saying Hamas militant, you just say Hamas. You say, oh my God, terrorists scary. And that has all been successful. So people are very scared of the word Hamas. It doesn't matter what it's connected to or anything else. Rather than say Palestine, rather than say Gazans, he says they think Biden should side with Hamas. That is a propaganda trick. It's really a lie, but it's a propaganda trick to make you think that's what they're saying is side with. No, they're not saying side with Hamas. They're saying a ceasefire. They're saying stop. Even that would still be a lie, at least partially, because not all the media. You got Fox News out there. How many people on Fox News are saying Biden should demand a ceasefire? How many? And then even on CNN, it's like, how many on CNN are saying Biden should ask for a call for a ceasefire? We're 9 seconds in, and everything is lies and garbage.
I don't even see how that applies. It's ridiculous.
So then he tears up his own. What a lunatic. He made up something that's false, and now he's like, and I don't know why they'd be saying that. Well, they aren't. You said... You made that up, and now you're angry at them for the thing you made up.
Is the idea that he is suddenly going to uptick in Michigan by like 10 points?
Okay, the other thing, which I'm not even going to spend much time on, is he thinks the duopoly, the garbage, electoral politics of the two parties, he thinks they matter. So he's, and that shows the level of, brain cells he's working with. He thinks it matters. Oh, Biden's going to win by that, could win by that. Or if Biden wins, everything's bad in America. If Trump wins, everything good. He's giving in all that, which is what a lot of right wingers do, I guess.
If suddenly he sides with Hamas.
So again, sides with Hamas. That's not what any of this says. I have not seen a single article from the New York Times or Washington Post or CNN or even the right-wing outlet. Like, I have not seen any of these articles, right-wing, liberal, none of it, that is even remotely mainstream media that says, quote, Biden should side with Hamas. He's made that up, and now he's tearing apart the thing he's made up.
You know what actually is kind of popular in the United States, as it turns out? Israel, according to a brand new Wall Street Journal.
He then talks about how Israel's popular in this new poll. Again, I told you it depends on the demographics, but I think if you ignore all demographics and you just poll everyone, you're going to find more people favor Israel. So this is exactly equivalent to what was done in Nazi Germany, right? Nazi Germany, nonstop propaganda against Jews. Before, pre-World War II, this leading up in the late 30s. Nonstop, not even late 30s, mid 30s, 1930s, nonstop propaganda against Jews. Then you go and you ask your average German, what do you think of Jews? And they go, oh, they're the worst. What does that show? Does that show that's what Germans believe, or does it show that the propaganda is working? So him being like, look at how popular Israel is, it's just dumb. Well, and also I just want to make the point, when you're committing genocide, polling doesn't matter. Let's say 95% of Americans thought Israel was awesome right now. Doesn't matter. Still a genocide. But he thinks it does because that's what you do when you're trying to endorse a genocide is you go, look at how great the propaganda is working. That's something we can point to. He's got to, search through a big bag of tricks to try and find something that is worth pointing to about this genocide, that is worth saying, oh, this is good. There is no way of defending this genocide at all. But he says, oh, but the polls say it actually doesn't matter.
Actually, it's the opposite. If security is restored in the Middle East and it is not a headline by the time we hit election season, that's going to redound to Biden's benefit.
If security is restored. Wow, that is the best euphemism for a genocide I've ever heard. If security is restored, you know what he means by security restored? He means ethnic cleansing succeeded. We won ethnic cleansing. That's what he means. All Gazans either displaced or murdered. Security restored. In an apartheid state in which people were not allowed to have clean water in Gaza, not allowed to have medical supplies in Gaza. To him, that's security. I would imagine to the people not getting the clean water, not getting the medical supplies, not getting food, that's probably insecurity. Huh. You notice how words mean different things to different people? To him, when people are appropriately oppressed and their lives destroyed and they don't have clean water and they're living insecure lives where they don't have clean water, medical supplies, or anything else, then to him and to Israel, that's security. It's completely backwards to the reality. There's also the fact that, just to throw this in there, nothing makes Israel more insecure than being a genocidal apartheid state, because it is turning the world against them in a world that largely supported Israel's apartheid state up until a lot of the countries did up until October 7th.
He's going to look like somebody who allowed Israel to destroy Hamas and reestablish deterrence in the region.
Reestablish deterrence. This guy's bringing out all the stops for euphemisms for genocide. Reestablish deterrence.
How you sympathize more with the group of people who have elected Hamas and the Palestinian Authority and who by polling data support October 7th by leaps and bounds over,
Okay, first of all, he did what I already talked about this earlier with that congressman. He's acting like everybody in Gaza is a, flag-waving Hamas person. Some are not, but you can't genocide people for voting for someone. A. B, Not all of them are. That's like acting like everyone, when Trump was in office, everyone in America voted for Trump. Did we? Did every one of us vote for Trump? Or how about when Biden's in office? Did every one of us vote for Biden? That's interesting, Ben Shapiro. You voted for Biden. I had no idea. And it's also garbage nationalism to throw that in here as well, which, you know, to believe in nationalism as a core belief that really defines your worldview is just kind of animalistic and barbaric. But you know, that's what he is and what he does. So I want to hear the rest of the sentence. So he says, how could you side with people that elected Hamas
over, you know, the democratic country that has human rights involved with it?
He couldn't even, that has human rights involved with it. He couldn't even name what those, as Israel commits one of the worst genocides this world has ever seen. He couldn't even name what the human, they have human rights involved with them around. There's human rights around. But besides that ridiculous statement, he says, as opposed to the what is it, best democracy in the Middle East or something? Not a democracy. 100% not a democracy. When a state has 2.2 million people in Gaza alone unable to vote in an apartheid state, imprisoned, not a democracy. And West Bank, people in the West Bank, they can't vote either. Not a democracy. You see how apartheid states work? They're not a democracy. They're not the best democracy in the Middle East. It's not democracy. So you can insult other countries in the Middle East for not being democracies, but don't act like Israel is. It ain't. So then he tears up his own. What a lunatic. He made up something that's false. And now he's like, and I don't know why they'd be saying that. Well, they aren't. I want to show, this is him debating at the Oxford Union. And I want to show you a propaganda trick he uses here.
Which part of Palestine is occupied?
The entirety of Palestine.
There we
But
go.
I'm not
Thank you
calling
once
for
again.
the destruction of Jews.
I appreciate you expressing your full genocidal intent for the Jewish people living between the river.
Why is it genocidal?
So I love this technique. This is a nice little technique he uses here. She says all of Palestine is occupied, 100%. He says, thank you for making clear your genocidal intent to wipe out all Jews in what you're calling Palestine. Saying something is occupied is not calling for a genocide of the people who have occupied. Not at all. No one's saying that. And would you like more examples of that? Because they're easy to give. Take, for example, Crimea in Ukraine. Russia had a vote in Crimea. The Crimean people voted to be part of Russia, but that's not what the West says. The West says Russia went in, invaded Crimea, and faked the vote or something like that. And they are an occupying force in Crimea, okay, part of Ukraine. If you talk to Biden or the government or Republicans in Congress or Democrats in Congress or any of them, and you said, is Crimea occupied? They would go, yes, Crimea is occupied by Russians. And would your response be, thank you, well, you just called for the genocide of all Russians? What? Yeah, you just called for the genocide of all Russians, that all Russians in Crimea, all Russian-speaking people in Crimea, which is most of them, all Russian culturally. You just called for a genocide. No, I just said that they're occupying Crimea. No, you just called for a genocide of all of them. The reason you make that jump to a false stand, a false idea that the person didn't say. So now, first of all, some people believe you and go, oh my God, she called for a genocide. But secondly, even if people don't believe you, the debate then gets shifted into her or whoever going, oh, I didn't say that. I didn't call for it. Well, now you're winning. That's the debate now. The debate's not the real debate, which is Israel needs to stop genociding. Israel's an apartheid state. Israel took all these people's lands and land and forced them into tiny refugee camps and et cetera, et cetera. That's the real debate. By making this false statement about like, oh, you want to genocide all Jews, you have taken over the floor. It's utter nonsense. Ben Shapiro also in another statement, he likes to say that if Israel put down their guns, then all Jews in Israel would be genocided, which is also not true. There's no evidence of that. But even if there were evidence that there are people that want to do harm to Israelis, you still can't commit genocide. You still can't bomb hospitals. That's not how it works. I guarantee you there are Ukrainians that want to kill all Russians and maybe the Russians that want to kill the Ukrainians in that scenario, in the proxy war we helped create, that doesn't mean that that would be done if they sat down at a peace table and ended the fighting. It is used to cover up the actual debate, because he can't address the actual reality. He can't address what Israel's doing. He can't address what Israel is. He can't address the reality of Israel. And he has to put forward all this garbage to try and trick people to think that he's somehow speaking some kind of truth about the reality there. Oh, and if Israel put down their guns or stopped genociding, apparently, the Palestinians would kill all the Jews. That's like saying that in apartheid South Africa, anyone who called for an end to apartheid was calling for a genocide against all white people. And if the white people stopped oppressing with guns the black people, then instantly they'd all be genocided, which did not happen. And if anyone said it was going to happen, that was an idiocy at the time. But calling for apartheid states to end, calling for freedom and equality for all peoples, that's not calling for genocide. And it is a legitimate stance to take and a moral stance to take.